His whereabouts remain unknown, but Muammar Gaddafi is speaking out again. A statement from the ousted Libyan leader was read on Syrian-based television today, and he lashed out at NATO attacks against loyalist troops in his hometown of Sirte.
The terrorism and aggression of NATO in Sirte cannot be described and has no other similarity in the past or in the history of wars. If Sirte is isolated from the world and this atrocity is committed against it, it is the world's duty not to be isolated from it. Therefore, you should take international responsibility and interfere immediately to stop this crime. Muammar Gaddafi, leader of the revolution.
Sirte is one of at least 3 cities remaining in the hands of loyalist troops.
The outskirts of Beni Walid in Libya. The battle for control of Libya continues some 4 weeks after anti-Gaddafi forces overran the capital, Tripoli. Anti-Gaddafi forces unleash firepower. The traditional stronghold of Libya's biggest tribal grouping, Beni Walid's complex mix of loyalties is a proving ground for the ability of the new leadership in Tripoli to hold together a nation whose historic divisions Muammar Gaddafi exploited during his 42 years of rule. Fighting was fierce, but the results were inconclusive. A Reuters witness later reported that Libyan NTC fighters withdrew from Beni Walid after pro-Gaddafi forces shelled their positions in and around the city. Many of the town's 100,000 residents fled in recent days. Armed forces also closed in on Gaddafi supporters in his hometown of Sirte. It is unclear how many civilians remain in the town. NTC fighters spoke of scattered pockets of heavily armed opponents who have dug in. The fighters also spoke of their hopes.
Now we are in Sirte, at the entrance of Sirte International Airport. There are some clashes with Gaddafi. With God's will and ours, we will demolish these Gaddafi rats.
Libya's new government says that tens of thousands have been killed in the fight for the country, and the war is still not over. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
Days before the UN vote for Palestinian statehood, protesters gathered outside the State Department to demand U.S. support for the Palestinian bid.
The U.S. should not veto it. It is up to the Palestinians what they want. If they want a one-state solution, if they want a two-state solution, whatever they want, it is up to them. So it doesn't give nobody the right to veto what they want. This is part of democracy.
Not only do I support their rights, which are being trampled on and have been for over 60 years by Israel and the Zionist movement, I feel a special obligation as a citizen in the United States, as a person of Jewish background myself, as a person who believes in human rights for everybody, to speak out about this.
The main message to the U.S. government was an end of U.S. aid to Israel.
Funneling $8.2 million to Israel every day is wrong. The 24th wealthiest nation in the world, they don't need that money, and weapons are just perpetuating terror and fear and violence.
Instead, protesters who are made up of mainly younger students want to focus the foreign aid that is going to Israel domestically in programs benefiting the American people.
We, the American people, we're the ones paying these tax dollars, we're the ones funding this occupation, and in a representative democracy, we have a say in how our tax dollars are spent, and we say no, we refuse to continue to fund this occupation.
This money could be spent on a lot of good things in this country that's suffering from a huge economic crisis, while it's being spent on military that is destroying homes, killing people, and continuing the longest occupation of our modern time.
Similar protests took place in other cities across the country and around the globe. On this International Day of Democracy, protesters marched here to the White House to demand from the Obama administration that their tax dollars stop going to the Israeli government in its continued occupation of Palestinian lands. Marjan Asi, Press TV.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is September 16th, 2011, and this is part 2 of this news bulletin. www.ggnonline.com is my website. That's ggnonline.com. Also on YouTube, ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. Check it out. All the links will be posted in the video's description on YouTube, so go and check that out. All the articles that I cover. All right, so have a lot of news to get to here. We have Libya RAF carries out biggest raid yet on Gaddafi forces. Says the RAF or RAF has stepped up its attacks on Gaddafi's forces, carrying out its biggest ever raid on Libya, destroying more than 20 targets in a day. Targets. Are those people? Is that infrastructure or what? Because now, you know, you got these rebels, these whatever you want to call them. I think they're disillusioned people is what they are. We saw that article from that ex-U.S. congressman who was over there saying that it's NATO that's basically going in there beheading people, just really just causing all kinds of rifts. And I think that the rebels are disillusioned, and now they're complaining about their standard of living. Well, it's like, well, why the F didn't you think about that before you got into all of this? You had everything that you needed before this. But no, it had to be cool like Egypt and in other places, you know, and Egypt had their own reasons for having a little Arab Spring uprising. But like I said, all of this has been staged by intelligence agencies, international intelligence agencies. They're not separate. There is no nationalism. They're all just one big one, and they created this whole fabricated uprising. And now they're using you as pawns, and now you're complaining about standards of living when you had everything that you needed, necessities, places, free apartments, money to, if you got married, $50,000. I don't understand, you know. And that congressman said 95%, when he was over there, 95% of the people love Gaddafi. So I don't know, you know, it's like, I think Al Jazeera just goes on there and they just like, they show a completely different picture of what's actually going on wherever they report. It's just pure lies. So I'm going to keep moving here. We have Loyalist heartland stands its ground against the Libyan revolution. So we already pretty much covered this, but it says it's too early to predict whether the pro-Gaddafi heartland wedged between former hub of Benghazi and Tripoli could turn in the seat of resistance. And it's pretty crazy what's going on right now, but it says U.S. government kicks off Libya's exploitation. I mean, they're just going ahead and they're releasing frozen assets. They're going in there divvying up contracts as if, you know, the contracts are null and void now. And then you have other things going on. Oh, they're going to they approved Libyan seat for former rebels in the UN, which Gaddafi never went to the entire time, except for maybe one time, and he spoke for 2 hours, basically bashing him, telling him that the UN didn't even do what it was supposed to do, which was they were supposed to stop all these wars, and it has never done it. So it just created more wars, and he's right. So we have here, it says British Prime Minister David Cameron has taken the lead negotiating with the new Libyan government in a bid to secure the lucrative contracts for his government. He says, he goes on here following Juppé's French foreign minister's comments that it was fair and logical to grant slices of the Libyan oil prize to those governments that first helped the Libyan revolutionaries. Talking about the spoils of war, of course. And it says here, Cameron and Sarkozy have arrived in Libya capital on what is considered to be the first visit by foreign leaders to the post-revolution Libya. So, and they basically said that they're calling on Gaddafi to give himself up and face justice. And like I said, justice is blind. That's why she has a blindfold on her. So I wouldn't turn myself into those. They're rats is what they are. They're evil rats. I would not turn myself into them bastards. It says here, global NATO and recolonization of Africa, lessons from the Libyan intervention. So if there's any uncertainty about the real mission in the U.S., France, Britain, and other members of NATO in Libya, these doubts were clarified with the nature of the military campaign against the people of Libya, writes Horace Campbell. And you can go in there and check this out. It's a really, really in-depth article. It's from Africa, allafrica.com, and they're more localized, so they give you you know, more facts and truth. And it goes in there and tells you about how they're going in there, NATO's mission to help black people, and actually it's black people, mercenaries killing other blacks, and they're being stereotyped and that rounded up. I've covered that. And then it calls global NATO and the intervention in Libya, talking about going all the way back to 1951, establishing the Little America until the U.S. was asked to leave after Gaddafi seized power in '69, and they've been scheming to get back into Libya since then. So go in there and check that out. Got to keep moving. UN approves Libya seat for former rebel terrorists. So now the terrorists and Al-Qaeda now has a UN seat. It says here, UN Security Council eases Libya sanctions and sets up the mission. What's the mission? Well, it's to set up oil company contracts. Tear gas kills another Bahraini protester, but nobody cares. Iranian Bushehr nuclear plant comes online, and the world survives. Oh my God, it's not a nuclear holocaust. Saudis eye Pakistani nukes to face Iran. So Saudi Arabia is beefing up its military links with Pakistan to counter Iran's expansionist plans. And Iran against EU bid for Caspian pipeline. Of course they are. It's their neck of the woods. It says Iran is opposed to the EU's bid to transfer Caspian Sea energy resources to Western countries, says the ambassador. It says Iran understands Russia's concerns over the EU plan to draw a gas pipeline for Turkmenistan and the Caspian Sea to the west and agrees with Russia on this matter. So, yeah, you know, and a lot of this stuff is going on with Georgia. It's either Georgia or Ukraine. I think it's Georgia. And it has to do with building a pipeline. And the Iranians don't like it. Pakistan hits back, and of course, Iranians and Russians have their own little beef with that with territories in the Caspian Sea as well. So here's something you're not going to hear in the Western news, right? You're only going to hear the one-sided news. That's why I try to give you both sides. Armed groups have killed a Syrian law enforcement agent and injured 4 others in the southern province of Dar es Salaam. So armed men. So it says here that terrorists attacked government troops in Bushehr al-Harrir district of province on Friday as they were conducting a security patrol. It says here, according to Syrian officials, 1,400 people, including 700 security forces, have been killed since the beginning of the unrest in mid-March. It says with the opposition accuses security forces of being behind the killings, government blames outlaw saboteurs and armed terrorist groups for the deadly violence, stressing the unrest is being orchestrated from abroad. Then we have Syrian forces killed 20 in anti-Assad protests. And then we have China discourages meddling in Syria. Then Turkey's leader says Syria regime will fail and fall. So like I said before, guys, I don't really get Turkey. I don't know. They got a U.S. missile shield there. They're talking shit to Israel. Now they're talking shit to Iran. I don't trust Turkey. I honestly believe they're just another globalist New World Order arm. So U.S. urges citizens to leave Syria immediately. So drone bombing will commence soon. Côte d'Ivoire, French army tried to kill me, says ex-Ivorian President Gbagbo. So it goes in there, says the French army attempted assassination during his April operation to remove him by force because, well, a lot of people actually supported him. U.S. drone strikes South Somalia. And of course, they had, what, mass graves as well by Adarara's little gang of thugs. It says here at least 3 missiles have reportedly been fired by U.S. drones near Kenya-Somalia border, raising fears about a possible casualty. So CIA doing a good job there. Paris ban on Muslim street prayers comes into effect. So they have a hijab ban as well. FBI teaches agents mainstream Muslims are violent. Muhammad, a cult leader. So then we have Arab American strip search at airport a couple days ago. Egypt reiterates commitment to peace treaty with Israel. Palestinians to seek full UN membership September 23rd. Then we have Palestinians shot by armed settlers. That's right. The West Bank. Then we have spy comedy. CIA Israeli-funded group creates phony terror website, and Germans bust them as Al-Qaeda. So go there and check this article out. This is now proof that the U.S.-Israeli site intelligence group is active in creating groups who support terrorists. Then military whistleblower tells of indiscriminate Israeli attacks. Troops fired tear gas during a curfew in a West Bank village to stop peaceful demonstrations. So this is typical. This happens at G7 summits and that, and especially with Israel. Try to quash protests before they even begin. Well, of course, they have provocateurs. That's what they do. They act like they immerse themselves in the groups. E-Verify flags Obama's social security number. Says mysterious Connecticut-based social security number does not pass E-Verify. Then Obama, I'd like to work my way around Congress. Of course, he's talking to La Raza, saying if I had a magic wand and I can make this happen on my own, sorry, I would. So it says here, Obama ordered to Denver bunker by U.S. military. So Russia has been notified about this DEF-CON maximum readiness alert drill on September 27th. And pretty scary stuff here, guys. What's scary too is that Denver could become another, the new capital along with Atlanta, kind of like Jericho. It says here, Florida doctor gun law blocked by federal. The first in the nation law restricted what Florida physicians can say about guns to their patients. So go in there and check that out. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.